Have you ever thought about diving into government contracting? I've been there and it can be a daunting journey. But what if I told you that there's a less overwhelming way to success? It's possible with our done-for-you government contracting service. We do the heavy lifting for you, sourcing the contracts with agencies that are already in love with the type of work that you do. So no more overwhelming tasks. Just focus on what you do best. You're one click away. Visit shebuiltsuccess.com and let's make it happen together. On this episode of She Built Success, we talked about what it's like to build a money team, some of the fun nuances that my money team does for us behind the scenes, and some of the things as you're a startup, you're in shift, or you're in scale for what a money team looks like in those different phases of building your company. Follow me along as we talk about unveiling what the money team does, how it pertains to you, and how you can best take advantage of planning for the future. Let's jump into this episode. You're tuned in to another episode of She Built Success, and I'm your host, Claudia. Let's get started. We all know that in business, it's important to have a money team. Now, I'm going to go in depth on what a money team is and what my money team looks like in hopes that you'll be able to think about ways that you can start incorporating or beefing up or building up your money team. My money team consists of 3 people: my tax strategist, my wealth manager, and my CFO. And all 3 of them bring their expertise, their questions of me. I bring questions to them about what it looks like to build my company, to plan for my family, and then any personal ventures that I want to take on at any given point in time. Now, how did I get to this point? Because my money team did not always exist. Originally, in 2011, after my husband passed, I knew I needed to get finances in order, and things like estate planning and a wealth manager were now at the top of my list. And so at the time, I met with a wealth manager and we talked about kind of, what is my vision for my kids? And they were almost 3 and 7 months at the time. And what did I want to do for them? And then what was I looking to achieve personally? During that window, I was still a W-2 employee. So I had not yet restarted my company. And I really wanted to make sure that we had a strong foundation for what wealth management looked like for myself and for the girls. And I remember we had conversations and we talked about future planning and possible different college saving funds for the girls, but it never really felt like a true cohesive plan. I felt like it was just a sliver of, okay, this is your 401k and this is what you want for the girls. But it was never the full story because it's not just a 401k and it's not just what I want for the girls. It's how can we plan for failure potentially and plan for success? And let's talk about what that looks like. We didn't have those kind of conversations. That's a gap that I always felt like was missing. So we're going to put a pin in the wealth manager for the moment at that time in 2011. Let's fast forward. 2018, I was on IG. I'm a researcher at heart and I love data. And I found a few CFOs that I would reach out to have a conversation about what it would look like to be a CFO in my company. Now, at the time, it was on my vision board to have the CFO, a certain person. But I said, you know what? Let me at least do the research, see who else is available, who aligns with what I'm looking for, because the company wasn't at the status to where it is now. The company was literally just me, just restarting my company. I guess I should say why I keep saying restarting my company. My company, actually, I had, prior to this iteration of Capital Consulting Group, I did have 2 other companies. One was formed, I think about 2006, 2007 with my late husband, and that was his. And then the other one was me in 2000, let's say 8 or 9, and that was a consulting agency. I ended up shutting that down after my husband passed because, well, that just obviously wasn't my focus. But that's a story for another day. So back to the CFO search. I ended up looking for the CFO. And I reached out to her and I said, you know what? I have you on my board. I'm not quite ready for you yet. I know I can't yet afford the services that you have, but I'm telling you right now, hold the date because I will be here in a year. I'm very adamant on that. And she's like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. I got back into consulting in my own company with Capital Consulting Group. And I said, okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and reach out literally a year later. I was like, all right, I'm ready. Let's go. Do you have capacity? She's like, oh yeah. And I was like, do you remember when I sent you and I had these Post-its in my office of my team, what my dream team, my CFO, my wealth manager, my tax strategist, some other entities within my team. And I said, do you remember I sent you this picture on IG? And it was all these Post-its, and her name and her title was right there on that Post-it. And she was like, oh yeah, we did have that. Like, it was a brief conversation, but the fact that I'd be coming back in a year from that, just that vision, knowing that that was what I wanted, knowing that having a CFO, especially in government contracting, was paramount to the success of my company, and vision and planning was something that we both aligned with. And so because of the type of content she was putting out, it was very data rich, and it explained the difference between a CFO, an accountant, bookkeeper. Like, that's not my jam. Like, data's my jam, but like when we start talking about accounting and taxes and financial projections, and that's not really my wheelhouse. So I ended up bringing her on board, and we've been working together ever since. And I'm just beyond grateful for the type of conversations that we're able to have. So this is the second part of my money team. My tax strategist is my first. My CFO is my second. We do projections. We talk about new ventures because they're always something in the work with me. So we talk about our new ventures. We talk about how, the company is performing month to month. We talk about quarterly planning. We also talk about annual. So what are we projecting for the coming year? And I like those conversations because it allows me to introduce new things, but really talk about the things that are currently moving or in flux in business, especially in the government contracting space where, some contracts are shorter term and others are more longer, like 4 to 5 years, depending. And so while those longer term contracts are great, we still have to plan ahead because those longer term contracts will come to an end and you'll need to have another one in pipeline. In government contracting space, they are slow moving. And so you have to make sure that you are doing your due diligence on the back end to be able to build that pipeline. So those are the kinds of conversations as myself as the owner and herself as my CFO we have. And it's been paramount. Fast forward a little bit, we're going to talk about my new wealth manager. Actually, my tax strategist and my wealth manager, I met them both through my CFO. And I guess that's why I can't stress enough the importance of having your network and understanding who you are so that you can find people that align. So that's how I found both my tax strategist and wealth manager. They came recommended from my CFO. So I met with my now wealth manager, different person from 2011. And I was explaining, kind of the history of what I felt with wealth management, and stocks and stuff is also not my jam. I'll play a little bit. I have some play money I'll play with, but like that is just not my ministry and I'm okay with that. And so I was telling him that, and we would have conversations, and he's very, very intelligent. I'm looking forward to bringing him on so we can have a discussion as well. But for now, we're talking about the money team. So my wealth manager, our conversations also look like what Capital Consulting Group holds, but it looks like, what do your investments look like? What is the market doing? What are we projecting potentially happening with the market? And those conversations are, okay, and what's the financial health of your current portfolio? What are we doing for the girls, and how is things going to be continue to set up? What are some things that we might need to look out as they get older, when they turn 16, when they turn 18, those milestones, 21, so forth and so on, and how that all comes into play. And so that's our conversations as a money team. And my money team, I'm thankful for them because while they're each experts in their own area, they're able to look at their area of expertise, but then have conversations with one another to be able to say, okay, well, I would advise Claudia on this based on this new venture or based on this existing. And I think that, based on what we're projecting, we should do this. Or maybe we need to, prepare on this side financially because we know this contract's about to ramp down. So having the money team and our quarterly money team calls helps me be able to express, not that we meet regularly individually, but as a collective, express new ideas, express maybe frustrations of areas of growth that we're looking for or scale. And I think that's really good. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm just starting. So what do I do? And I think even in just starting, put some Post-its up or whatever your modality is to envision what you're looking for your team of what you think you need. And yes, that can change, and be okay with that changing over time as you and your company grow. But if you're just starting, so you're thinking, under 100K roughly, or about 100K, just do that. Put the Post-its down. See what it is that makes sense for you for building that team, your money team out to help advise you and guide you. Look at the things that you really look like. For me, it's like I said, the stocks and financial projections. Like I know that's not my jam. So let me write down who would do it. And if you don't know, Google. Hello. The other one is if you're like in the shift phase, so you're looking to put in systems, you're looking to put in resources. That's about just 101s, about 800K roughly, as far as revenue bringing in, you actually should have that foundation. And if you don't, I strongly suggest that you do. You guys might not meet quarterly, but you should definitely have your tax strategist, your CFO, and a wealth manager at a minimum to be able to look at your entire portfolio and financials so that you're comfortable on the life side of things and you're comfortable on the work side of things. If you're at scale, if this team does not already exist, I'm assuming it is, but let me not, because to each his own. I think it's important that you're looking for markers of my resources, my team, my CFO, my tax strategist, my wealth manager. Are they in a position to be able to advise me? Sometimes that comes with experience. Some financial, I'll call them people because that's a nice generic term, do not have the experience with scale. And so they're kind of winging it. You don't want that. You don't want somebody winging it. You want somebody who has worked with multi-millions. You want somebody who's able to advise you in that capacity, because while it's good to grow and you may have a bookkeeper or an accountant now, they might not be at that next level that you need. And it's okay to move forward. And so when you're at scale, it moves a little bit, I feel like, at a faster clip than if you were starting up, because you've been through a lot of the motions. You have a lot of the systems in place and you've established your underpinning team. But talking about things like projections of team members and resources and what that looks like, that's what you're thinking about in scale. You're really trying to have those conversations with your money team that allows you to be successful, that allows you to, if you want to go and take a break for a little bit, do that, because that's something that we've worked into my plan. Hey, if I decide, I'm ready to take off Q4, what's that going to look like? Like, those are conversations that we have at scale. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be at a desk all day or talking to my team all day. That's not how we grow. That's not how we scale, right? And so I think that when you're in the scaling phases, it's really being cognizant of what your end goal is for that moment, for that year, for that quarter, to be able to have that conversation with your money team. Now, one of the things that I find is advantageous in the money team conversations quarterly is understanding that things change, like contracts are getting ready to ramp down. I know I've mentioned that before, but there are things in the company that can change. You might have a new offer that you're ready to plug in, and you're having the conversation to project what that looks like. You might be going out for a loan if you're looking for a physical space for your office, for instance. Like, those are things that you want to talk about with your money team, because it allows them to say, okay, this is where we are financially. This is where we need to start projecting or tracking to be. These are the type of contracts that we need to have in. This is a dollar amount. This is how many years we need to be thinking about in advance. And then potentially new team members. So especially in the government contracting space, we have it where a particular contract, we might not have the resources on the bench. And on the bench is like, they're kind of waiting for the next contract to come about, or they're not literally waiting and you're paying them. They're just on call, so to speak. And so that if that opportunity comes available, you reach out and say, hey, we have this opportunity. Would you be willing? Do you want to work on the contract? Planning for your bench of resources. So knowing what you're going after as far as contracts, and your money team is in alignment with that, that helps them plan and project. And that also helps them recognize, and I'm speaking from experience, whether or not a particular opportunity even makes sense to go after, because they're not all profitable. So to me, having money team allows for the conversations to be more fluid and more inclusive, especially on the personal side. It's okay, what does my portfolio look like? How long will it take for me to retire? If I want to retire at 55, what's that going to look like? Well, you know what? I think things changing a little bit. I want to work a little bit longer. I enjoy what I'm doing. What if I want to retire at like 62? What's that going to look like? So, or hell, what if I want to retire next year? Being present enough to ask the right questions. And hopefully this is helping you think about ways that you can have these conversations with these individuals, because otherwise you're just going to be stuck. We don't have time for stuck. We like to push go. We like to make things happen. You have built the company in the position to where you are so that you can have these, I'm not even calling them amenities, because I don't feel like they're amenities. They're more like necessities to me, because otherwise you're going to just fall flat, right? And we don't want that. The other item that I wanted to talk about when it comes to the money team, you pick your cadence. We decided to pick quarterly because it allows us to not only have our respective monthly / quarterly review calls individually, but it allows us to come together and say, hey, are we tracking to what we projected at the top of the year or not? And if not, what do we need to do to adjust? Do we need to change out team members? Do we need to add team members? It really just depends. And so I think having the capacity to be able to have those meeting times allows for some regularity. So we get on in our calls, I guess to give some context of time, usually no more than 45 minutes. It's definitely not past an hour. I don't believe in these long-term type of meetings where we talk about nothing at nauseum. That's a waste of time, but it is about at most 45 minutes. We usually finish in about 30. And it's really just talking about what we're doing from day to day. We have I write out an agenda. They get access to the agenda ahead of time, and we're running through these points. We're boom, 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 boom. And if there's any moments where we need to stop and say, hey, we need to dig into this a little bit more, then we do that. And I think that helps to keep the flow of the conversation going, but we're still being actionable and purposeful with how we're having the discussion. So I'm hoping this helps to shape what a money team could look like for you. Like I said, don't feel like it's, you have to have everybody in place from the onset. I want you to start thinking about what success looks like for you and what that money team would look like, regardless of the stage that you're in. You can be a startup, you could be in your shift where you're doing systems and resources, or you could be in scale. And at each point in your journey, you're thinking about, okay, who are the players that I need to have on my team to be able to help guide and direct me. I will say, it's funny, my wealth manager, he actually gifted me this cookbook, and it's a cookbook of just like all different Southern type recipes. And I remember we got it for the holidays a few years back, and me and the girls, we went in and we earmarked, we got Post-its. I like colors, so we got different color Post-its, and one kid got one color, the other one the other, and then I got a color. And then we went through and marked all the recipes, and we were like, all right, bet, which ones are we going to make? And I can remember the first one that we actually made as a family, the girls, myself, and my partner, we did a gravy. And when I say that gravy was like amazing, because the gravy was in the recipe book, it was amazing. We had it with turkey. I do remember that. And I texted my wealth manager. I was like, thanks for the cookbook. Here was the first recipe. It was bomb. It speaks to more than just us having that wealth management conversation. It really is just like a loving, I think is a good adjective. It's just a really good relationship where I'm able to just have that. Whereas contrast that to earlier in me seeking out a wealth manager, it was very sterile and cold and not inviting. And so it felt really good to have just that. And it was literally a cookbook, guys. It wasn't even anything, elaborate, but it's, again, more memories, right? I know who gifted it to me, and I know the types of things that we're doing with that. While it is important to have that money team, it's also important to have these elements and aspects of that. I do get gifts from the other folks on my money team too, but I won't spoil those because, some others like surprises, and I won't spoil them. But it's nice, and it's just reciprocated and kind. The last thing I'll say before we close is the money team. I feel like sometimes people get stressed out because they want to be further along than they are. And it's okay that you're not to that point. Having that vision to know that that's where you want to be is the first step, and be okay with that first step. Do your Post-its, do your vision board, do your Google Doc, do your whatever you do to write that out. But it's okay. Just take the first step to identify who you need on your team. Identify where you want to go and how you want to grow, so that you can be successful. With that stated, I hope you have a little bit of notes on what each of the CFO, tax strategist, and wealth manager looks like on my side of the fence, and what it could potentially look like for you. I invite you to continue listening to She Built Success. This is Claudia, and I'll catch you next episode.